It was canola growing season. Half of the state of Victoria was covered in fields of yellow flowers that would soon be harvested and turned into cooking oil. We went on a silly random road trip, 1,200 kilometres across 2 states of Australia, to buy stuff from opshops and to visit one very big thing. Australia has a quirky obsession with big things. Big bananas, boxing crocodiles, big sheep, big pineapples. You get the picture. We just love the stuff. So the 4 of us, me, middle-aged geek girl, the other T and the other S, decided to visit the Big Lobster. News reports said that he was going to be sold and moved to Western Australia somehow, and that made the trip time sensitive. We just had to go. So we talked on Facebook and booked overnight accommodation in Coonawarra, and that's another story. The trip was going to happen. We convoyed, us in the RAV4, they in their van. The plan was to meander across 500 kilometres of southeastern Australia, stopping at Ararat and Hamilton to visit opshops. The other S and the other T run market stalls selling children's clothing and toys. They also have about enough Lego to build Trumpy's wall if they were so inclined, which they're not. They have a disturbing knowledge of the location of every op shop in eastern Australia. So we followed the string of extinct volcanoes across Victoria. Op shops are a really weird place. Creepy mannequins, VHS tapes. There's always a VHS tape, but there's something about Mary there for some reason. And weird selections of DVDs like this one I found in a very religious op shop. My thing is movie reference books and movie tie-in novels and DVDs. So we hit a whole bunch of op shops except this one in Ararat because it smelled like an unemptied ashtray. We grabbed a sandwich for lunch in Hamilton, the town, not the rap musical. Then realised if we were going to see the lobster, we better hit the road and fang it west. But first we had to see the giant bandicoot in Hamilton. Here's the bandicoot, and here is a real one for comparison. That particular part of South Australia is billiard table flat. It's the limestone coast, 300 kilometres south of the capital city Adelaide, and 500 kilometres from Melbourne where I live. It's a land of cattle farms and fishing boats and small towns that live or die on fish, cows and the tourist dollar. As the shadows got longer, we got there. Here he is, Larry the Lobster. Larry is an icon in the town of Kingston SE. It's been there since 1979. He's a ludicrous monument, a silly, indulgent, purposeless folly that dragged us across 500 kilometres in 2 states. We walked around this silly thing for 20 minutes. The restaurant and function centre there is derelict now, and it was a bit sad to see that. Deserted tourist attractions are what's left behind when someone's dream dies. The 1,425 people living in Kingston SE love Larry the Lobster. That much affection for anything makes it a sacred place. To move it to Western Australia, which was one of the plans, would have been a crime against culture. A few days before we arrived, after we planned the trip and booked the hotel, a local millionaire farmer on the limestone coast, a guy called Tom Brinkworth, bought Larry. He wasn't going to move to Western Australia, he was going to stay in Kingston. So we took a lot of photos of Larry and had a good time and did a selfie in front of him. And then once we'd worshipped at the crustacean shrine, we drove down the coast to a town called Robe. Apart from having really good fish and chips and being generally a beautiful place, Robe has its own place in the history of Australia's racism. Here's a history fact. During the Victorian gold rush around 1857, the colony of Victoria introduced a landing tax of £10 per person, which was more than the cost of the trip, to deliberately slow down the number of Chinese immigrants. To dodge this racist tax, 16,000 Chinese people landed at Robe, then in the colony of South Australia. They walked 200 miles, 320 kilometres, to the goldfields of Ballarat and Bendigo. The Chinese immigrants did a lot for Victoria. They grew vegetables for the gold diggers and went on to be the main workforce for the construction of the country roads across the top half of the state. See, you learned something. While we were eating and enjoying the beachscape of Robe, the sun was setting. The other S reminded us that we needed to book into our hotel before 8 p.m, and it was 120 kilometres away. Rain started coming down. The roads between Robe and the hotel weren't great, so we put pedal to the metal and hoped that neither vehicle was going to hit a kangaroo or a truck. We made it to the hotel, and then came the bit where I stuffed up. I sent the other T and the other S the wrong link, and they were booked into another hotel 8 kilometres away in the town of Penola. That was my bad. The other T called the Penola Hotel. They were really nice about it, and we stayed here at the Coonawarra units. Great rooms, great hotel, right in the middle of mile after mile of Cabernet Sauvignon vineyards. None of us drank a drop of wine while we were there. We had driving to do. So the next morning we said goodbye to the other T and the other S, who had to get back to Melbourne. Middle-aged geek girl and I had a great breakfast in Penola. We went in a hurry. It was time to find a volcano, which means Mount Gambier. Mount Gambier, known as Ering Balam, Eaglehawk to the traditional indigenous owners, erupted explosively 6,000 years ago. A hot spot under the earth called a mantle plume hit the water table there and bang! It then formed a crater lake, and due to the calcium carbonate crystals forming in the water during the warmer months, the blue lake changes from a vivid cobalt blue in summer to steel blue in winter. The newest thing is that people are clasping love locks to the fence of the outlook over the lake, because nothing says romance more than a deep lake full of freshwater sponges and tiny invertebrates. Mount Gambier also has a lot of cool historical buildings. The final stop on the epic trek was a coastal town I like a lot, a place called Nelson over the Victorian border. There's nothing much there. A pub, a couple of shops, the Glenelg River, and a bunch of boats. But it's a calm, relaxing place, and if you catch fish, you can scale and gut them there too. From Nelson we took the back roads home as much as possible. I was sick of highways and slow drivers, but there was one added bonus when these two emu decided to cross the road and saunter off into a pine forest. Like all birds, they are the descendants of dinosaurs, and they just don't give a shit about anybody else. So there it is. We went from dusty opshops to an iconic giant crustacean, a beach port with an interesting history, an extinct volcano, and we ended the trip with two enormous flightless birds. It was a really nice way to spend 36 hours. Tickle the like button if you enjoyed the video. Hit subscribe if you're demented. I'll be back soon with more videos. Goodbye.